The person in front of you, and then I'm going to get you and you. Okay. Sorry, it's just.
No, that's right. That's right. My name is Tom Heyer. I live on Ingamar Street.
Can you speak up, please?
Yes, my name is Tom Heyer. I live on Ingamar Street. I shop currently at the Safeway quite a bit. I am in the camp of liking what you've done. I think it's a very interesting plan. I too am sorry that you've already reduced the density. I think being with the proximity to Metro, I think it's important to have areas that are more dense, closer to Metro, so that people can use public transportation efficiently and effectively. I also think in terms of the PUD, in terms of it being a benefit, what I really like about this plan is I like the public space, the public park, the steps. In Tenleytown right now, there really isn't much for, in terms of public spaces. We have that sort of arid plaza by the metro station up in Tenley Circle, which is not really a public space. I mean, it is, but it's not a very interesting one. If you want to go someplace here in the neighborhood and you don't want to pay to do something, there isn't any place to go. There's no place to go and just hang out, to see people, to do interesting things. And I think that these kinds of spaces are really important. I've traveled a lot around the country and I've done a lot of public park planning, and I can tell you that if they're planned well, they will work. Portland, Oregon is a great example of spaces that they have them many places, and they have the wonderful fountains, and they're great places for kids to play. And I just think that something like this would be terrific. The height does not bother me, and this is a city.
My name's Aidan Jones, and I live at 4612 Brandywine Street. That's 46 Brandywine, basically.
Speak up.
And I've lived in this neighborhood for 39 years. For 7 years, we lived at 44th and Ellicott, 2 blocks from the battle zone, as it were. I got involved with Friendship Neighborhood Coalition in the 1970s. Which an organization that arose out of the attempt from the Quebec plan to basically have skyscrapers on both sides of Western Avenue and into Friendship Heights. And it was fought in Maryland and in DC, initially with emergency downzoning and eventually permanent downzoning to keep the developers in check from basically encroaching not only high-rise but back into the neighborhood. I represented Friendship Neighborhood Coalition in the original expansion of the Safeway from 14,000 feet to its present 38,000 feet. And we lost, we took that to the Court of Appeals, we lost, but through that case I became very familiar with the Harry Family Trust that owned all of this area. Originally sold a small portion to Safeway, which then greatly expanded back into the neighborhood, and we're talking 1977 now. Because of my experience with the Harry family and the Harry Trust and knowing their situation and knowing that they needed to sell the remainder of this property that eventually became GDS, that GDS was probably the best possible reasonable commercial alternative for that area. And I sat and listened to opposition for about a year, and I went to Gladys Stern, who was the headmistress at the time, and I said, Gladys, I know the Harry situation. I think this is the best possible outcome. And I testified on behalf of GDS in 1985 at the Board of Zoning Adjustment hearing in support of the plan, in support of their plan. Fast forward, I have not been involved in zoning issues for reasons of having to how to make a real living in the interim. And but this plan by GDS and a particular aspect has drawn me back into this. And the aspect that I'm talking about is that we were really fighting encroachment, not only upzoning along Wisconsin Avenue by developers, but also encroachment back into the neighborhood, which was the reason for the fight on the original Safeway expansion. We still have that concern, and it's important for everybody to understand that developers will take as much as they can get because there's more money in building a 9-story building than there is in building a 5- or 6-story building. from this kind of problem. This area, these buildings, where we have proposals by GDS to build these 8- and 9-story buildings, is presently zoned C2A, which is a 50-foot height restriction. You can get, with an acceptable, and I emphasize acceptable PUD plan, up to 65 feet. And that is a political issue to some extent. I am extremely disappointed that GDS, who I have perceived no longer a contiguous neighbor like Dennis Williams and a number of the people that have spoken, no longer a contiguous neighbor, but my impression is that they have tried to be as good a neighbor as possible. But I'm extremely disappointed that they are proposing 8- and 9-story buildings along here that will raise, will require upzoning. But the most important...
I'm sorry, are you going to wrap up soon?
Yes, I am. Thank you. The most important point, and this is directed to you all, we look to you to protect us, to protect the zoning, to protect us, to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. If we get what GDS wants along here, along Wisconsin Avenue and on 42nd Street and these mixed-use buildings, that will set a precedent that every developer in DC has been salivating for 40 years. And we will see a canyon along here on both sides of Wisconsin Avenue. Folks, it will not be recognizable. It will be like, it will be New York City.
All right, you know what, so let's, I wish I had a gavel, but I'm going to say, could we not have any more interjections? And I'm going to ask no applause. We've already had the applause meter, so folks can get a sense of how many people are here for which side. Let's just try and let folks speak rather than applaud.
So I speak to each of you collectively and individually to ask you, to implore you to protect us, the taxpayers, the voters, the people that voted you into office. We rely on you to do your job, to adhere to what the regulations presently say. Absent extreme reason to do otherwise, there should not be upzoning, and I don't think that GDS has provided a sufficient reason to justify upzoning along Wisconsin Avenue, and I would ask you to reconsider your request to build to the height that you want to build. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so I'm going to take some folks. So, wait, let me just say, who else had their hands up? You've had your hands up for a long time? 2, 3, you ma'am, 4.
I had mine up and on.
You were on there, I think.
I'm taking it down.
Oh, all right.
Heard what I heard.
Good. All right.
Hi, my name is Mark Kokoris, and I live on 41st Street, and I'm delighted to meet Steve from Ward 3 Vision. And I also have a question for Russell, and it was a question that I asked you, I think, at some long ago meeting. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I take her to Beauvoir for summer camp. And whenever I go in there, I'm just amazed at the snarl that happens for summer camp. And I'm just wondering, do you have a similar type of, first of all, do you have summer camp? And do you have will you employ a similar kind of plan for students that might go, parents that might send their kids to your summer camp?
So we have outside programs that we are leasing our high school for summer camp. It is far less students than are there during the school year, and our intention is to work with anybody who would be using the site to figure out appropriate compliance. We have yet to create a traffic management plan for folks who would lease during the summer, but that's something that we can think about how to do.
Okay, and finally, is the staircase, is that the amenity that you're offering the community? Is that the amenity for is that your amenity?
We have shared with the commissioners a number of amenities that we are proposing for the community, and the other thing that we have said throughout this process is that if there are specific amenities that the community would like to see, we would welcome the opportunity, email, talk to GDS, come talk to me, to hear what would be most beneficial to the community.
Thank you, and thanks for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Okay, so we had a bunch of folks over here, so say you, sir, you, ma'am, and then you.
My name is Phil Mitchell, and live over on Van Ness. I just have a question regarding 42nd Street. What is the flow of the traffic? Is it two-way traffic, one-way? How does that work there?
Two-way traffic.
Two-way, so is there going to be a light at Wisconsin? And
It's got to be right in, right out, right? So in other words, coming down, you'll only be able to make a right. And then
because that's a pretty, right now, it's a pretty dangerous intersection at best. So I just was curious, because now you're not going to have any traffic, with that little slender way coming in. You're going to have traffic coming in, taking a right off of Wisconsin.
Dan?
Well, and that's actually part of the idea, is actually to calm that traffic, because the intersection today is just very large and has a lot of extra pavement. So the whole idea is to actually get rid of some of that pavement, slow that traffic coming down Wisconsin Avenue, so it's not as fast of a movement. Makes it much more pedestrian friendly, and so I think that along with creates the opportunity for a real nice park.
I'm sorry, did I hear right turn only onto Wisconsin
Yes.
from there?
Correct. So that would be a
Uh-huh.
right, basically right off of Wisconsin in, and then as you come up 42nd, you have to make a right-hand turn out.
Oh, okay.
So
That's good.
to make a left, it's not going to have to be on Chesapeake, right?